If you've ever seen an old building in your neighborhood and thought, I wonder what's in there, then I've got the perfect event for you to put on your calendar. Open House Chicago from the Chicago Architecture Center is back October 18th and 19th. It's a free citywide festival where you get behind the scenes access to more than 200 of Chicago's most beautiful, historic, and interesting buildings across 25 neighborhoods. Seriously, there's no tickets. You just pull up and explore the buildings. Plan your weekend now at openhousechicago.org. Steppenwolf Theater kicks off its 50th season with the Chicago premiere of Mr. Wolf. Written and directed by ensemble members, the Chicago Tribune gave it 4 stars and called it explosively emotional. And I watched the trailer, y'all, and that seems like a perfect description. It follows the story of Teresa, a 15-year-old who has been missing for over a decade. Now a miraculous reunion has left her with a family she no longer understands nor recognizes. Get tickets now at steppenwolf.org. Today on CityCast Chicago, Border Patrol agents marched through downtown this weekend. Yet another 100-year-old bridge is going under construction, and we're celebrating the best of the South Side. It's Tuesday, September 30th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. I'm joined this morning by none other than executive producer Simone Alicea. Good morning, my friend. How was your weekend?
Hey, good morning. It was all right. I got to drive around the city a lot this weekend. Working on a new painting of the backside of the Museum of Science and Industry. So I have to, which is a wild choice for me to make, given how historic that piece of construction is, that I'm like, yeah, I can recreate that in acrylic. That's fine.
One of the reasons you also got to drive around the city is because you brought these big ass care packages to the entire CityCast Chicago team, which were filled with chips and gummy worms and not little hug juices, but organic little pouch juices. The honest kids, which my nieces love, but don't necessarily got the sugar level. But I appreciate you looking out for me.
Of course. What's a good membership campaign if there are no snacks?
You know, we deserve some good snacks as well, some good perks. Speaking of, before we jump into the news, I do want to remind listeners, it's the fall membership campaign. These are the last few days to get your hands on that exclusive CityCast Chicago Neighbors Make Chicago tote bag. We trying to get to 110 new members. We have a bunch of y'all already who have joined up as neighbors over the last few months and years, but during this 2-week stretch, we were hoping to introduce 110 of you to our neighborhood for the very first time. So far, we've got about 85 to go. So that means we got a lot of new people in our membership, but we got a ways to go. And I think, you know, by telling y'all this, that's going to encourage y'all to help us. Y'all know we got some goals on this side, and we'd love for y'all to help us reach them. You can join at any time by going to membership.citycast.fm.
85 maybe sounds like a big number, but it's not that many. We've got, if you count today, we've got about 4 more days to get that done. So if you're hearing this and you've been on the fence during this campaign, now is the time to join. You heard Jacoby mention in the intro that once again, we are going to be talking about ICE in Chicago, about immigration enforcement in Chicago. This is a story we've been covering twice a week, at least for the past few weeks, because it just has been such a fast moving story and something we've been watching really closely. I think it presents a good case for why joining CityCast Chicago Neighbors, why becoming a member, why supporting this show is so important and can be so valuable. We are out here experiencing this city just like you are. We live here. We cover the city. When we see agents marching through downtown Chicago, when we see protesters getting tear gassed out in Broadview, right, that is not something that we are watching from far off and commenting on out as if we don't live here, right? That is something that is happening that affects us very closely. And what I'm hoping that you, the audience, gets out of these conversations is, being able to not just kind of be aware of what's going on and just keeping track of all the different twists and turns in what's happening right now, but feeling like, you actually get to process kind of what is happening as you're living it. That's what we're doing when we're having these conversations. We are trying to make sense of it and give a sense of just what it feels like to be living here while this is happening. And I think that's worth something. I think these conversations are really valuable. And I would love to make sure that we can keep doing that, not just about this, but about all the other things we need to process in this city too. We talked about property taxes yesterday, right? I think anything related to affordability, cost, living in this big city, and the fun stuff too. Those are all things you can really only hear on this show. And I think I want to keep doing it. I want to make sure we can keep bringing you those conversations. And that's why I think it's so important to become a neighbor today at membership.citycast.fm.
No, I agree with you. I think conversations like today, we are going to talk about like me being down on the Riverwalk this week and seeing the federal agents, and we also going to give you some traffic updates, but we also going to talk about a bunch of cool ass places across the south side of Chicago and one of our favorite publications in Southside Weekly. Like, we get this privilege to talk about a little bit of everything as it relates to this city. And our hope is that in addition to processing, you're getting a bunch of cool events to go to, that you're finding places to make new friends and extend your community, places to get involved in your neighborhood, things in this city that don't make us feel like hopeless to our circumstances, to our budget crises, and our president being an authoritarian who can't help but put Chicago in his crosshairs. And our hope is, as Simone said, this show kind of does a little bit of all of that for you, that this newsletter helps you in all of those different ways. And so, hey, if you want to be one of the, 20 people who signs up today and helps us get that much closer to, 100 people during this campaign, we'd appreciate you. So head to membership.citycast.fm now. Obviously, we don't need to just allude to it any longer. Simone, we have been covering the ongoing protests out in Broadview as the aggression from ICE agent picks up and has continued over this past weekend. But about a month ago, we were just in this place of, will the federal government send National Guard troops? And if they ever did, what would that look like? And I think we got our closest example of that over the, weekend, starting on Friday, when, the Border Patrol agents were out for their Chicago River photo ops. And that extended all the way to Sunday with agents marching through the Gold Coast.
Let's maybe start with the boats. As you mentioned, that happened on Friday. Basically, there were a bunch of Border Patrol boats, agents on those boats going around near Navy Pier and near the river as well. And by all accounts, it was, as you say, a photo op.
There were literal videos of masked agents with their guns, sort of heroic posed at the very front of the boat. And you just see another agent with their camera or their phone just sort of dip down, trying to find the perfect angle with the skyscraper behind them.
Yeah, it's it's a shot that so many of us as Chicagoans try to get anytime we can get out on the water on a nice boat, but to see it be used for essentially propagandic, militaristic purposes is chilling. I like that a lot of stories mention this because I do think it's important. Is Lake Michigan is the only Great Lake that doesn't have an international border. It's located entirely within the United States. So there is quite literally no reason for Border Patrol. There's no border to patrol out on Lake Michigan, and certainly not at Navy Pier. So that happened on Friday afternoon. We saw a lot of those pictures kind of flood social media. And then on Sunday, in another display, you saw dozens of federal agents marching through downtown Chicago in sort of military-like garb, again, armed, masked, boots on the ground, marching through downtown and also like Gold Coast area, almost all the way up to Old Town.
Superior and Clark posted for a bit, Millennium Station. And they weren't just marching. They were openly racially profiling Chicago.
The agents were led by Gregory Bovino, who is a border control commander. He has been kind of the face of the Trump administration sort of ICE terror campaign. Folks may know him if they were following the immigration raids out in Los Angeles. He was sort of the key leader there for a while, and now he has been here in Chicago over the past couple weeks during Operation Midway Blitz. And he was out on Sunday, and a WBEZ reporter asked him, was asking him questions about sort of how do you know who to arrest? What goes into that decision, especially when you're literally just out patrolling like this, right? Where we're not talking about a targeted action towards an individual that you're targeting. And Bovino responded, among other things, said there were several different factors. Quote, the particular characteristics of an individual, how they look. How do they look compared to, say, you? He says to the reporter who is white. So quite literally admitting to visual racial profiling openly.
There was a father and mother with an 8-year-old daughter who was arrested. I think the mother was also carrying a baby. There was a streetcar vendor who was detained. There were construction workers detained. It was, as they just walked through Chicago, sort of just like picking people up off the street and then pulling them to the side or taking them away.
And again, it would be one thing if we were talking about a series of actual raids, right? A series of targeted operations, either at a workplace or at someone's home. And again, right, terrifying, and that's on its own is already enough worth talking about. On top of that, what we have here is, again, a militaristic display, essentially, I almost want to call it a demonstration, right? A protest, right? We've had these protests in Broadview, right? That we've been talking about that has attracted at times up to a couple hundred people, right? And those protests they've had clashes with the federal agents at that ICE facility in Broadview, right? We know that those agents have been tear gassing, shooting rubber pellets into the crowd, that those have gotten really hairy. However, what we have not seen is like a giant march in protests through downtown, right? On the scale of, what we saw at the Democratic National Convention last year, or on the scale of, the Women's March after Trump was first elected in his first term, right? We haven't seen that kind of demonstration through downtown Chicago. There certainly have been protests here and there, demonstrations here and there, but nothing quite at that scale. Again, but to see dozens of agents marching through the city, through the most visible parts of the city, that is not a law enforcement operation. That is a display. That is a demonstration. That is for visual and terrorizing effect.
The fact that you watch just like journalists out in Broadview, just like as they're leaving the scene, like hit with rubber bullets through their car, have tear gas.
At least one journalist was detained over the weekend covering the protests. I think another reporter for CBS has called out that they were tear gassed, right? And they
made it clear. They said we can do what we want and go where we want, and there isn't really a damn thing you can do about it.
4 people who were detained over the weekend are now facing federal charges out in Broadview related to those protests. 2 people, a husband and a wife, are accused of having loaded guns with them as they clash with officers. The other 2 people, one person is accused of telling an agent, something to the effect of, I'll kill you right now, to his face, making some kind of verbal threat. A 4th person accused of fighting with officers who were trying to push the crowd back, so involved in sort of a scuffle there. Again, that is according to Department of Homeland Security, who has also been calling these protests riots, which, if using your body to block something, which is sort of the extent of the accusations that protesters have been blocking vehicles coming in and out. If that can be considered a riot, boy.
And it's already clear from the Department of Homeland Security, the Trump administration, and sort of everyone under their power vacuum that like every form of dissension, whether it is physical protest or now online criticism against ICE, that they are starting to criminalize these more and more.
As a journalist, you're taught report on what you know, report on what can be verified, report on what, what is factual, and to be generous about that, because, right, there's always something that you haven't quite seen yet. We are here in this moment where the aim is now plain. Again, you have Gregory Bovino out here saying how they look is one potential factor in conducting an arrest while marching through the streets of Chicago. And if somebody doesn't sort of see that for what it is, at that point, there's nothing I can say. It is plain. It is not hidden. There is no subtext. It is simply text. And I think in many ways is the hardest part about talking about this.
It's this state manipulation at full work. And it is, as much as it is very new, it is so reminiscent of the stories my mother and my grandparents would tell me of what it was like to grow up in the Jim Crow South or to grow up in, a Chicago in which you knew you could not cross certain boundaries and certain train tracks. We will continue to cover these updates as they happen in real time. Fall is in full swing, which means fall theater season is back and cracking across the city. And I got another pick for you to look out for. Don't wait to secure your tickets to Timeline Theater Company's world premiere of Hundreds and Hundreds of Stars. Motherhood, marijuana, and the multiverse collide in this story set in Chicago, exploring family, immigration, and identity. The play follows Clara, who's applying for U.S. citizenship ahead of a trip to Paris with her tween daughter, but Clara's application is unexpectedly flagged, threatening the only home she's ever known. We got a quote from the playwright and star Sandra Delgado, who says, "This is a very personal family tale, not unlike those playing out more and more every single day in Chicago and around the country." Starting October 8th, this Timeline production is being hosted in the immaculate Looking Glass Theater space in the historic Water Tower Waterworks at Pearson in Michigan. Visit timelinetheater.com for more info and to get your tickets today. Look, it's been a warm, mild September. Nobody, including myself, want to think about winter and the snow and the wind, but it is coming, my friends, and you're going to want to make sure your home is ready. So if you've been putting off replacing your old drafty windows, and you can, now is the time to call Window Nation. And you really should do it now, because time is running out on this Window Nation sale. Until September 30th, that's next week, when you buy 2 windows, you're going to get 2 for free. So you can get top quality, energy efficient windows at a reasonable price. Plus, installation only takes a day or less, so they're in, out, and you can get back to your day with brand new windows on your home. Don't miss out. Schedule a fast, free estimate now with the pros at Window Nation. Call 866-90-NATION or head to windownation.com.
So this isn't the only story we're going to talk about today. We have a couple more stories, stuff that is hopefully a little more actionable. But before we get to those stories today, I want to remind everyone that we are still in the midst of our fall membership campaign. In fact, we're in the final days of that campaign. We just need a few more people to join today to help us reach our goals. And you can do that at membership.citycast.fm. Of course, when you join, you will pay $10 a month, $100 a year to support everything we do here at CityCast Chicago, bringing you the news, bringing you events, and everything else in between. And again, you can join at membership.citycast.fm.
My hope is, because I pay for quite a few streaming services memberships that I probably use once a month, maybe a couple of times a month. If you're someone who is using this 5 times a week, times 2, because you also reading the newsletter and enjoying it and you're getting something from it, my hope is that you would want to join the CityCast Chicago Neighbors Program, mostly just to keep supporting the podcast and the newsletter, to like make sure we continue to be here, because like every other organization in your life, people are asking for your money right now because we need it to sustain this good work that we do. But we're going to also make sure you get the perks like the ad-free listening. So you ain't got to listen to me selling you things every couple of minutes. You're also going to get access to neighbors only events. We got a couple coming up in October that if you would have signed up, maybe a month ago, you'd be first in line for. So maybe get in line now. You also gonna get an email every single week that gives you some of our favorite things happening in and around the city. I have talked to listeners, readers, neighbors in person, and because I make this in my room, I sometimes forget like how much this can mean to the people who like listen and read, the friends you all have made going to our events, the stories that you've gotten more engaged with. And I'm eternally grateful that this podcast in any way, shape, or form has made Chicago feel a little bit more like home for you. And, and if you feel that way and you want to say thank you beyond just hitting play every day, then, get over to membership.citycast.fm. And the perfect way to say thank you is to become a CityCast Chicago neighbor.
Absolutely. Membership.citycast.fm. We're going to keep saying it. We're going to keep telling you about it because, again, these are the final days of our fall membership campaign, and really hoping to reach our goals and stay sustainable and keep bringing you this thing that you love and that I hope you listen to 5 days. We put it out 5 days a week. Yeah. I mean, it's there for you mm-hmm. if you want to listen to it. I'm telling you, if that's your daily habit, like, you're a pretty good candidate for membership. I gotta say, that's worthwhile. Again, that is membership.citycast.fm. Oh, and also you get a tote. You get an exclusive Neighbors Make Chicago tote, but only if you join before Friday.
I got mine. I took it out to the farmer's market on Saturday.
Beautiful. It's gorgeous. I am so excited, and I can't wait for all of our new members to get it, but they can only do it if they join before Friday. Remember, do it now. Don't wait. Don't think about do it. Just do it now while I'm talking to you. You're on your phone. Membership.citycast.fm.
Simone, 2025 is going to be remembered for a lot of things in the city of Chicago. I could probably run through a list that would take me another 30 minutes. But one thing I think Lokia will be known for is the year of the historic bridge repair. At this moment, 3 of Chicago's oldest bridges are either preparing, in the middle of, or just beginning some pretty significant overhauls.
Yeah, so I think the big one that folks probably saw headlines about over the past few days is the Lake Street Bridge, because that bridge is set to be closed for 3 years for rehabilitation work. That's a big deal, right? That is a bridge that has, it's got a train line running over it, according to the Chicago Department of Transportation. While it will be closed to vehicle traffic for basically those whole 3 years, it will the tracks will still run, except for there will be some interruptions in 2026 and in 2027.
They said there'll be 2 12-day service suspensions.
And then, so that was sort of the latest announcement. But we also have currently under emergency repairs, the State Street Bridge has been under repair since April of this year, but is set to open back up later this fall in mid-November. And then, of course, we also have the Chicago Avenue Bridge is undergoing major reconstruction, which is expected to last through the end of 2026. That bridge has been, since 2018, I believe, has been like a temporary kind of fix. Like the original bridge was like torn down in 2018 and then rebuilt in sort of a temporary manner. And now there's like this other major reconstruction that is happening. And that's not too far from where the Permanent Bally's Casino will be. So it's sort of as part of some other road work that is going on there as well.
Chicago is home to the second most movable bridges in the world behind Amsterdam. And that got me thinking, are we about to enter a few years or a decade where a lot of these historic bridges are going to need to be shut down for anywhere from 6 months to about 2.5 years? So they say construction is supposed to run from October 2025 to January 2028. So not a complete 3 years, but if we know anything about Chicago construction.
Yeah, it's always good to be optimistic.
It's that January 2028 is a suggestion.
Yeah, who knows? And that's winter. Who knows who knows? That's a couple winters between now and then. So who knows what's going to happen? Jacoby, it's interesting you mentioned that last year there was some reporting that 1 in every 6 bridges in the city is considered structurally deficient, according to National Bridge Inventory data. Our bridges are really old, right? A lot of them are well over 100 years old. So you got that. And then in addition to that, there have been decades where they didn't get enough funding for maintenance. Bridges take a lot of work. I mean, you bridge over water, right? There can be, cracks form and water damage.
Have you ever been under any of the bridges, whether you're on a boat or just walking on like lower Chicago, that you can, it's not just like, you can, even if you don't know anything about bridges, like you can see sort of the aesthetic decay of some of Chicago's bridges.
They are marvels and feats of engineering, and also they're really old. And in fact, the Lake Street Bridge was one of the bridges considered, quote, fracture critical, which means like if one thing fails, something really bad could happen. The Chicago Avenue Bridge also on that list as well. I think this is something that officials are aware of. J.B. Pritzker put some money toward road and bridge repairs, a while back, but it has been a really slow process. We wrote this article in 2024, and this is my favorite line in the article. In 2019, the state identified 4,129 bridges that needed repairs. Last year, the state identified 4,125. So it's 4 fewer bridges.
I think this is true for so many of the things we love or love to hate on in Chicago. Love being for the bridges, love to hate on being public transit, how obsessed we are with talking about our public transit, good, bad, and ugly. Is like you can't brag on these things if you're not willing to like invest in them, keep them running effectively. And so it is good to see that some of these iconic bridges are getting the love and attention that they need. I hope that, unlike lead pipes, we have a more comprehensive plan to deal with those.
Well, luckily, there's only 37 of the movable bridges, Jacoby. As opposed
versus
to
400,000.
Yeah. So I have a little more hope.
I got a feeling a lot of you out there got some excellent people skills. Maybe you worked in hospitality or customer service, or a job where you've had to listen, anticipate needs, and make somebody feel valued. Now, if that sounds like you, then you know how to put people first. And those are the same skills you need to become a successful realtor. Key part, successful. As a realtor, you wouldn't be starting from scratch. You'd be shifting your talents into a new role, one where you can set your own schedule, build new connections, and maybe even grow your earnings. If it sounds like real estate could be your next career move and you're like, but wait, where do I get started? We got you. Visit realtorsrealestateschool.com today to schedule your free career consultation. That's realtorsrealestateschool.com.
Hey, I'm Natalie, and I've always been a bit of a media geek. I pay attention to where people get their information, and I believe that high-quality information is a human right, and we have to support the local outlets that provide this. For me, CityCast Chicago is one of them. I love the city for its neighborhoods, its culture, and its people. It's vibrant and welcoming, but like other major cities, it can be complicated. And I want local media that reflects that reality honestly. CityCast Chicago does. Plus, it's a joy to listen to each day. You get conversations that are smart, surprising, and deeply local. It's thoughtful without being heavy and entertaining without being shallow. And sometimes it changes the way I see the world. I'll never forget the episode about a pigeon rescue that completely flipped how I feel and think about pigeons. I went from rolling my eyes at them to tearing up every time I think about them. That's why I became a neighbor, because Chicago deserves the kind of local storytelling and conversations that surprise and delight, and I want CityCast Chicago to stick around. Be a part of this with me. Become a CityCast Chicago neighbor at membership.citycast.fm and help keep local media in our city thriving.
So let's finish this episode talking about one of our favorite things that comes out every single year from our friends over at Southside Weekly, and that's the Best of the Southside 2025. It's a list that has come out every year for the last 12 years, celebrating some of the best bakeries and restaurants, community members, neighborhood organizations across the various Southside neighborhoods. If you did not know, fun fact, the Southside makes up the largest part of Chicago by land. And so I absolutely love every time this list comes out. And so I was moving through it and looking at some of my favorites, some of the places I've been, and our frequent guest, Natalie Moore, put out her own personal Best of the Southside, which included Best Place to Experience Diversity in a Segregated City, the 61st Street Farmers Market, Best Place to See Your Tax Dollars at Work, the Vivian G. Hirsch Research Collection of Afro-American History and Literature, and the Best Place to Buy or Experience Black Art, Gallery Gouchard. I'm happy to report I have been to all three of those multiple times over the years. And so I can, obviously, Natalie don't need me to co-sign her list. I need my list to be co-signed by Natalie. Let's be real.
She did write the book on the South Side. But yeah, I think it's really cool this year, their list. Right. They always have such great specific categories to highlight some unique offerings, you know. And then also this year, they have featured some, you know, prominent Southsiders who have written their own lists. So Natalie Moore among those. Ricardo Camboa is another person who they've enlisted to write a list. Former
Youth Poet Laureate Iman Lauren.
Mm-hmm. Some really cool folks who have their list. I gotta say, one of my favorite picks is Best Place to Find Ancient Bedrock and Healing Pebbles.
I knew you was gonna pick that one.
How did you know?
The minute you said, I knew you was gonna pick that one. It literally was. It was like centered on my screen because I was like, I bet Simone go here first.
That's the one, and that's at Morgan Scholl. Okay, I am obsessed with the lake. I'm obsessed with the lakefront. I am just the majesty that is Lake Michigan and the Great Lakes system. I am here for it. And Morgan Scholl is one of the best places to kind of really appreciate just how ancient this system is and where it comes from and what is happening here. In addition to that, so first of all, there is like an actual reef that you can see, which seems insane to say about a body of fresh water. But yes, there is a 425 million year old Silurian reef. I don't really know what that means, but it sounds cool as hell. Like, that's awesome. In addition to that, you can also see pretty clearly the remains of a passenger steamship wreck, the Silver Spray, that wrecked there in 1914. We did an episode on shipwrecks earlier in the spring that I think was really illuminating. I think it's just something that people don't think about when it comes to Lake Michigan. Also, it's like not like a thing we have super frequently anymore, just because we're not doing everything on boats like we used to, among other reasons. But that is a particularly visible one. You don't have to go that far out to see it. And it's interesting and like there's just a lot going on here at Morgan Scholl of like the natural world meets the built world. And anytime I think of anything that old, I am in awe. I am overwhelmed by how old a thing can be.
What I really appreciate this coverage too is it is both celebrating Morgan Scholl, but it's also giving folks an opportunity to learn more about it and get involved in the fight for its future. Because right now there are a lot of community meetings, a lot of Chicago organizations that are trying to figure out how do we protect Chicago's shoreline. If you want to let us know some of your favorite picks from the Best of Southside list, or you got some ones you want to contribute, please hit us up at 773-780-0246. Leave your name, your neighborhood, and your Southside recommendation. Y'all, please join me in giving a huge thank you to our executive producer, Simone Alicea.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
Hey, actually, Simone, why don't you come back? You've got our next segment about Open House Chicago, sponsored by the Chicago Architecture Center.
Hey, it's CityCast Chicago executive producer Simone Alicea here, and I'm here with Adam Rubin, the Senior Director of Public Engagement for the Chicago Architecture Center. Hi, Adam.
Hey, Simone.
I am really excited because we are talking about Open House Chicago, which is a huge free architecture festival that y'all run across Chicago every year. It covers more than 200 sites across 25 neighborhoods. That is a lot of ground to cover. So where do you even start if you're someone who is wanting to plan their own Open House Chicago adventure?
Open House Chicago is kind of the perfect choose your own adventure type of a festival. So when I'm talking to folks about what they want to do to kind of enter into this, especially if it's their first time participating, I'm going to ask them, do you want to stay in your neighborhood and check out some of the things that you walk past all the time and don't really know like what that building is? Or do you want to go somewhere new and check out a neighborhood that's somewhere else in the city that's completely off of your day-to-day path? I might ask you, how much time do you have? Do you have 8 hours on a Saturday and then also on a Sunday to collect up as much as you can? Or do you only have, 2 hours and you want to go to just one site? Do you like going to historic theaters? Do you like seeing rooftop gardens? Do you like seeing great views of the city? We've got all of those. We've got a whole lot more than that, too.
So Open House Chicago this year, October 18th and 19th, Saturday and Sunday, it gives people a chance to see some of the city's most unique spaces. As you mentioned, you've got theaters, you've got recording studios, you have mushroom farms. For someone new to the festival, let's say you have to narrow it down to your top 3. What are the sites that people have to see?
The hardest decision of them all.
Yeah. This is the hardest question of the interview, Adam.
Well, I got 3 I can kind of throw at you. So one I'm going to say is the Chicago Magic Lounge, which if you've never been to this place, it's incredible. This is a magic club in the Andersonville neighborhood. If you walk around by the outside, it looks like it's an old laundromat, but of course, it's a secret door into this spectacular magic lounge. Another one that I love is the Aspire Center in the Austin neighborhood. For anybody who's paying attention to the saga of the closed public schools, the Aspire Center repurposes one of these closed schools and turns it into a community center that has all sorts of things for folks who are living in the Austin neighborhood to come together and to serve them. And it's a really incredible multi-purpose space that has a ton of imagination because it shows you what you can do with a closed school building. The third one I'm going to mention is electrical audio, which is something that if you are a music fan and you know who Steve Albini is, this is one of these legendary music producers in Chicago, produced the Pixies, produced PJ Harvey, produced Nirvana. And he built his very own recording studio in the mid-1990s in an old industrial building in Avondale. And, Steve Albini tragically passed away last year, but this is going to be a rare opportunity to be able to go inside the recording studio that he built and see where he crafted this really unique sound that he is known for all across the world.
This year, you've also added new neighborhood headquarters on the northwest and south sides of the city. Tell me a little bit about those spots and kind of how they add to the experience of the festival this year.
Sure. Well, we learned from several years of people coming downtown and coming to the Chicago Architecture Center that people sometimes need a little bit of help getting started. So what we started to do at the Architecture Center was to make a map of things that were easily walkable from the Architecture Center. And that's helpful because there's about 34 sites downtown to see in the festival.
Sure. Plenty of architecture to see downtown, for
Lots
sure.
of architecture, not lacking it. But we thought that this would be a really good format to try and extend into the neighborhoods, to create kind of a hub for people to go and pick up a map, to get some more information about the festival, maybe to catch some people who've never heard about the festival before, but they'd be walking by and say, what is that? And actually be able to get some information about it right away. So on the north side, our headquarters is going to be at the Koval Distillery in Ravenswood, which is a great whiskey and gin distillery and tasting room. On the west side, we're going to be at a place called Starling by Duo, which is a brand new multi-purpose innovation studio and lab. It's really cool architecture. And on the south side, we'll be at the Ramova Theater in Bridgeport, which, of course, is this incredible live music venue in a recently restored 100-year-old cinema.
So some people might be hearing this and they're like, oh, I gotta go check it out. Some people might be hearing this who are really excited about it and they're like, man, how can I get involved? I know volunteers play a big role in making this possible. What are the volunteer opportunities that are available?
Well, by volunteering for Open House Chicago, you get all sorts of benefits. One that really brings in a lot of people is you get a priority access pass, which gets you to the front of the lines for our really popular sites. For example, one that's always popular every year is our Walt Disney birthplace in Hermosa. It's a small house museum, and there's always a long line in front. There's a bunch to have long lines in front, but this would speed it up a little bit because you get to get into the line of
Ironic to get a fast pass to the Disney house, I think.
Yeah. You're right. But if you are interested in signing up for this, you can sign up at architecture.org/OHC sign up. And we're still recruiting volunteers now. We end up with about 2,500 spread out across the city. So definitely a great way to get involved and meet other people who are as enthusiastic as you are.
Well, Adam, thanks so much again for joining us. Again, Open House Chicago is October 18th and 19th. You can find out more at openhousechicago.org or download the CAC app to plan that itinerary. We're going to have that link for you in the show notes as well. Adam, thanks again.
Thank you for having me, Simone.
Speaking of Open House Chicago, that's where we're going to be having our next Neighbors Only event. The team is going to be hanging out at the Ramova Theater in Bridgeport. But if you want the invite, you're going to have to join the neighborhood at membership.citycast.fm. I want to give a shout out to everyone who has already signed up during this campaign, including Allison Y, Mega D, Mason P, Jansen H, Sarah R, Nick R, Savannah F, Mira T.E., Amanda M, and Victoria K. We appreciate every single one of you for making time for the podcast, the newsletter, and going above and beyond to support us. Remember, they all getting the invites, plus they getting access to ad-free listening, the weekly events preview, and the coveted Neighbors Make Chicago tote bag. I got mine right next to me. Get like them by signing up at membership.citycast.fm. Pueblo Market is back this Wednesday in Pilsen. They're going to have community resources, an open mic, chess and spades tables, amazing food, flash tattoos, and so much more. I'll drop a link for you in the show notes. As always, we appreciate you. Seriously, we really do. It means the world to us. We make this isolated in our cribs, but when we hear from you, when you sign up, when you give us your suggestions, it reminds us that this thing is actually making it out to the world in some form or fashion. So let's keep this thing going. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace.